Thank you. My name's Joe Trimbach. With Emerson, we're specifically with White Rogers. We're a business unit of Emerson. So there's 70 business units at Emerson, or plus. Maybe there's more. I think we keep adding to. But White Rogers is located in St. Louis. We've been doing heat controls for over 75 years. And I've been working for White Rogers for about 16. So I've got a lot of information to cover. If I find or hit a hot button, you guys say, hey, I'd like to know how to ohm an igniter. What's that? You know, stop me, and we'll cover it. I hope to cover that. It's a specific question, but if you have a specific question, something out in the field that hits you. I know Nate's crew, we were talking earlier about standing pilot furnaces. We're not going to spend a lot of time on standing pilot because that part of the business should be dwindling, but yet you probably still see it when you're out in the field. So my mom and dad still have a standing pilot furnace, which has been there forever. Probably out last everybody. If you have a question, stop me. If there's a question online, Christy, all they got to do is raise their hand or a flag and
type it in chat.
Type it in chat, and Christy will relay that information, and I'd be glad to answer it to the best of my ability. Okay. We've got a few pieces of paperwork that we've set on the table. So the guys online, if you don't have that literature, Christy or Mike or somebody will send one to you. Be glad to do it. I'll try to reference it maybe a little bit. So when we're walking through the literature, it's great information to have. We're going to talk about all the cross-reference information that we have in that literature packet. And then after we get done talking about all the literature, I'm going to tell you why it's obsolete and useless, and we'll show you about something that's even better. I like to give you as many tools and resources as I can. I may not know every answer that you ask me, but I probably can find the answer either in the resources that I'm going to give you today, or online, or maybe in an app. It's usually available. It's just about finding it. So with that, we'll proceed and start talking about White Rogers and heating controls. And like I said, we've been doing heating controls, and heating controls are constantly changing and evolving. You see that evolution in basic form in gas valves. There's 3 different types of gas valves. We're going to talk about all 3 of those tonight. You might see that in the thermostat line. So you're probably seeing thermostats today that are wireless, right? That have Wi-Fi built into them, that are communicating, that talk to boards inside of furnaces. So the industry is a fast-paced and evolving and ever-changing business that we're in today, and it ain't going to stop. It ain't going to slow down. So just try to keep yourself up to speed and up to par with everything that you can see or read or get your hands a hold of. And maybe in a publication that you see online, maybe something that you read, but never stop looking for more information, because White Rogers, we're out there in the OEM side of the business. You'll see us in about 35% of the OEM boards out in the field. So anybody know who they see as far as an OEM board? If you open up an OEM furnace, what manufacturer sets the pace for boards? Does anybody know? Who do you see board-wise the most? Anybody? Who's board? Any question? Answer? I have a knife if anybody has the right answer. Sorry, guys on the line.
White Rogers.
White Rogers is not...
Emerson.
No, I wish that was the correct answer. Thank you for trying.
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw, no, board. Talking about like a module. You saw a module out in the field. It was in an OEM furnace.
Honeywell.
No, Honeywell actually doesn't make any. So no. You guessed the 2 that are close. So IC.
ICM.
ICP. Good. So the guys that make Carrier, right?
ICP.
ICP
Okay.
guys. Yeah. ICM does make a lot of aftermarket tools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Screwdriver. Knife for answering, screwdriver for trying.
Well, thank you.
About that. So I like some interaction. So there's White Rogers is number 2 in the industry. We have about 35% of the board business, and our competition has basically the rest. How about gas valves? Who's number 1 in gas valves? Anybody over here? Honeywell, number. No, close. Who would you guess number 1?
White Rogers. No, did this game.
White Rogers. Honeywell number 2. Okay. You did, but you've already bet. surprised.
Here, you never back.
As you go out in the field and you open up a furnace, you're going to see our boards, you're going to see our gas valves, you're going to see our igniters, you're going to see typically a hot surface igniter out in the field. You might still see some spark. Hopefully you don't see too many standing powers left, but you might. So with that said, we'll kind of get into the universal heating control stuff, and we're going to get reference back to the stuff that's in front of you as well. So as far as universal controls, I just mentioned the modules, whether they're integrated or non-integrated. You know, the non-integrated modules, does anybody know the difference between an integrated and non-integrated module? Integrated, non-integrated. Anybody know the difference? So think about this. So what comes in it? What do you think comes on an integrated module? What kind of taps? What kind of taps? What would you see? What kind of plugs would you see on an integrated module versus a non-integrated module? Maybe like a humidifier tap, right? An electronic air cleaner tap. Maybe a speed tap for a motor. So
an accessory tap.
An accessory tap. So as modules have grown over the years, right? They went from basically non-integrated to just basically on-off switches, almost like just basically an on-off switch, right? Something like an egg timer would be a great example. Something that just keeps track of time, right? The old non-integrated White Rogers 50E47 was basically just a great big egg timer, right? Now we've integrated more and more pieces and parts into a board, right? We've added more and more parts to it. So now when you open up a furnace, it's got a whole slew of different parts and pieces inside, and it controls lots of different things. Whereas the old boards didn't, and then back when the old standing pilots, you didn't have a board inside those, right? All right, so if we went up and looked at some of the universal controls, and we'll talk about maybe igniters, gas valves, lots of different gas valves out in the field, some C valves, integrated modules. So you got 14 modules, or 14 models, and I'm going to show you a few more that'll make that number 2,000 even higher. So if you've got 14 items on your truck, or in your van, or at your shop, right, you can replace 2,000 different parts and pieces out in the field. So try to keep it simple by having less but doing more on the truck. And we're going to talk about a lot of those universal controls. So igniter voltage, flame sensing on carbide igniters and nitride igniters. And I should ask everybody if they know the difference between the two. We're going to talk about these later. So if you have a carbide igniter, right, and a nitride igniter, anybody know the difference between the two igniters, carbide and nitride?
Nitride's nice and carbide's.
More so, it's true. What about specifically? Specifically,
They ohm out different.
They do ohm out different. Yep. One can be ohmed out and one can't. Right?
No, no, you say right, but I don't know what that means.
Okay.
We ohm out both of them.
Okay, so on a carbide igniter, you can ohm out a carbide igniter. In the ohm rating, depending on your igniter, is going to vary. And it can be anywhere from 30 ohms to almost 400 ohms,
Okay.
depending on the igniter. I have a slide somewhere buried deep in one of these presentations, and it talks about all the different ohm ratings on igniters. But the answer is you can ohm, a carbide igniter by putting your ohm meter inside the carbide and ohming it out, and it's going to give you a reading. And we'll show you a slide here later, and it talks about what to look for on an igniter if it's busted, okay? Versus a nitride igniter, which typically you can't ohm out. Most nitride igniters are non-conductive, so they don't conduct any. You're not going to get an ohm reading across that igniter, so it's either going to work or it's not going to work. And I'll talk about the differences between the two igniters.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Universal gas valve selection. You'll notice there's a wide variety of gas valves, 36C valves, H valves, and J valves. And the capacity on each one of those valves can vary. Some of the C valves were typically about 280,000 BTUs. Then we went to the H valve, which gave you a little bit more capacity. We took away, or we added some other features to the H valve as well. Then you have a fast and a slow, and you have up to 2 stages on an H valve too. The booklet that we're going to cover in a minute is going to show you all those features all in one, so you'll have them in front of you. So when you get out there as a job and you say, hey, I've got either a G or a J valve. I'm not sure which one I have. Let me see if I can figure it out by looking at the booklet. Okay? And what's the difference between the two? Which valve do I need? All right. Universal furnace controls. We make other features to the H valve as well. Then you have a fast and a slow, and you have up to 2 stages on an H valve too. The booklet that we're going to cover in a minute is going to show you all those features all in one, so you'll have them in front of you. So when you get out there to the job and you say, hey, I've got either a G or a J valve. I'm not sure which one I have. Let me see if I can figure it out by looking at the book. Okay? And what's the difference between the two? Which valve do I need? All right. Universal furnace controls. We make a board that's very universal. It's called a 50M56U. We're going to cover that in great detail. That board is our most universal board, and it replaces, gosh, over 90% of the single stage modules out in the field. So one board kind of does it all. That's why we call it a rescue board. Great board to have on the truck. Obviously, if you're only replacing boards for Goodman or for Lennox or for a train, you probably don't need a universal board. But if you're working on everybody's equipment and it's a Saturday and you're on call and you've got 3 iPhones, right, like Nate does back there, right, he probably wants to have the most universal control in his truck he can, because no matter where he goes, right, he doesn't want to get stuck with driving around town. Not too many wholesalers are open Saturday night. You might be able to make a phone call and get one of them open for you. It might cost you a couple bucks, right? But it's nice to have universal controls on your truck, something to get you out of that job. All right. So we have those as well, and we have universal controls rescue kits that are single stage. We also have 2-stage kits. We have Proven Pilot Direct Spark, and once again the 50E47, which has been around for a long time, that non-integrated module. Talk about that too. My competition offers a few as well. We like to think that we do a better job of universal controls than they do.
That 50E47, sir, is that a little 6x6 box?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I didn't bring one with me. Yes, but I was
One blinking light?
I call it about like that.
Yes, sir.
One blinking light. Yep. It's got chips that slide in the side, the 50Ds. So if you've ever seen this guy up top, looks like that. Only the integrated spark and integrated spark and direct spark have chips that slide to the side of the module.
Okay.
Set up the timing for the module.
Yes, sir.
50E47 does not, I don't believe.
Okay.
It's just a one shot. That's all.
Okay.
I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've had that module on front of me. No, I was right the first time. So the 50E47, right? We have a Proven Pilot Direct Spark, and then the HSI, the Hot Surface Ignition module, which would be our 50E47. This is the one you're talking about, right? It has the chips that do set up the module for the different timings. So I think there's 2, 4, 6, 7 different chips. They'll all be color coded. They'll be labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you look at the module, you reference the installation instructions. It will say, okay, if you've got this S86, Honeywell module, and you need to replace it, use this chip, put it on the side of the module, off you go. Okay, just pretty simple. I mean, once guys get to using them, they kind of like it. If you screw up, put in the wrong chip, guess what? It doesn't burn into memory. You take that chip out, put in the right chip. Okay, that's a big difference between us and the competition as well. So, and it's an advantage for White Rogers. Honeywell does offer a couple universal kits as well. Depending on which one you like. I think we all have something that will help you out. Integrated modules. The family looks like this. So and I like to point these out too, because guys maybe haven't seen them. But some of the 50 A55s, the 50 A50s, maybe you've seen them in the field. They typically look like that module there, right? Or maybe even longer. If you see the HSI modules on the left, those guys have been around for a long time. We made a slew of 50A50 modules, and then they kind of converted that down into 4 modules, and we called those universal. And now we make just one that replaces all of them. So you don't have to carry 1,400 different modules in your truck, right? Which is nice. We also make some new modules. They're universal. One's called a 21M and one's called a 21V. They're both 51Us. The 21M stands for 3-speed or multi-tap. So if you have a 3-speed motor, the 21V would be variable speed motors. So they're both 2-stage board replacements. So if you've got a 2-stage furnace out there in the field and you're trying to get a universal control or universal replacement, those 2 boards are our universal 2-stage boards. Yes, sir.
And does the 21V our boards on the train product come with dip switches settings. Will that come with the same type?
Yeah, it'll look very, very similar.
Okay.
If it'll replace, so check and make sure it doesn't replace every two-stage
Okay.
furnace out there. But Train, I believe, is one of them that does. Check and make sure it is the one that you're looking for.
Yes, sir.
On the back of the literature, you'll see it. If you don't see it on the back of the literature, you'll find it once again. We'll cover this in a second.
Okay.
And then if you don't find it there, I can show you the app, and the app will cover it. So we can check it today while we're here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, integrated single-stage universal application. So that 50M56U, which is the kit over here, I'm going to break it out and let you guys look at it, is our most universal kit. It's a 120-volt application kit. It has a hot rod igniter inside the kit called a 21D64-2. There is a wiring harness located inside the kit. And most guys start to freak out when I show them all the wiring harnesses, but actually this is probably one of the best features of the kit. So if you open the kit up, you're going to have a board, you're going to have an igniter, a universal igniter, and you're going to have a wiring harness bundle. The nice part about the wiring harness bundle is they're all labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay? So when you open up the instruction sheet, the instruction sheet says, hey, you've got this train module, right? You can use this module. You need the E and the F harness. Grab the E and the F harness, plug it in the module, and off you go. So it really is designed to be as simple as we can make it. And I think once you guys use it once, probably some of you guys have used them already. So he's used them before. They're pretty simple once you get to see
You
them.
gotta read the directions.
Gotta read the directions. They do work on two-stage Goodman equipment as well. So if you're working on two-stage Goodman, but mostly single-stage kit. But the nice part is if you're doing some two-stage Goodman work, or if you guys are doing two-stage Goodman work, you'll find this kit is universal for that particular application as well. Okay. Inside the kit, there's an igniter. The igniter is a 120-volt nitride igniter. Okay. If you are replacing, so let me grab a piece of literature for me so we can talk about this kit. So in your literature, you'll see this 50M56U piece. Okay. If you've got this piece of literature and you open this bad boy up, you're going to see lots of different OEMs listed. So you'll see OEM model numbers listed on the piece of literature next to the corresponding OEM piece of literature. If you see the OEM piece, and I'll pick one out for reference. I'm going to pick out a Goodman. Here's a Goodman. It says it's a 50A50-298 board. It's about 12 down, right in the middle of that chart. And next to it, it says you need the E and the F harness. So you'd go grab, let me get it there, F harness. So somewhere in here, you'd find an E harness. See it? There you go. So we grabbed the E and the F harness. He's grabbed the two harnesses. It took us 3 seconds. A long time. Right? And then it gives you a column. It says, on that column it says, use existing or 21D64-2. So it's saying use the existing igniter or the 21D64-2. So we put an igniter inside the kit. So if it says use existing or, you have the option. Okay? So remember, this is a 120 volt module. If it says existing or, then it means it's going to be a 120 volt furnace. If it's in yellow and says you must use the 21D64-2, right? That means that the module you're replacing was the 80 volt module. So if you work on training, you work on training quite a bit.
Yep.
So I've got American Standard in my house, so I've got an 80 volt module in my house. If I take that 80 volt module out and replace it with a 120 volt module, remember, I've got an 80 volt
Igniter.
I've got an 80 volt igniter,
Yep.
right? I can't leave that 80 volt igniter in there because that igniter is not going to last very long at 120 volts. It'll go soft and brittle. So when you start looking at, we'll back up. So, I don't know, 20 years ago, 22 years ago, White Rogers was searching for a new igniter. And over in Europe, they were using nitride quite a bit, right? In Europe, they have 50 hertz 100 cycles.
Yeah.
100 cycles, 50 hertz. It's one or the other. It's a constant voltage. Well, that constant voltage made that igniter last a very, very long time. Okay. They brought it over into the States, right? We tried it over here. Well, and you got 120 volts going to that light right now, and a minute later you got 122, and the next minute you got 118, and the voltage fluctuates. Well, that igniter gets pretty soft when the voltage starts fluctuating. So the engineers came up with a great idea. They said, you know what, if we reduce the voltage down to about 80 volts, and typically they start about 90 on that intelligent ignition board you see in that train furnace, and there's several OEMs that use nitride in their furnaces. This happens American Standard, Lennox, Thermopride, Amana, there's several others. So they said if we reduce that voltage down from 90 volts to maybe 80 volts, down to 70 volts, to the point where it doesn't light and then jump up 3 spots, we'll maintain that fire rate for 250 fires or more, okay? And then we'll go through that intelligent ignition process again. So we're always hunting to find the best spot to light the flame, okay?
The lowest voltage.
The lowest voltage. And that lets that igniter last forever and ever and ever. So we see typically sometimes almost 80 years out of that igniter. So it's a long, long time. So that's the difference between running this guy at 120 volts, where with the fluctuations in voltage you lose that igniter. You wouldn't lose it the next day, but you lose it eventually.
Right.
Get soft and broke. Okay. I do see that a lot. I'll see a guy bring in a 21 D64-2 igniter. And I've been through 3 of these igniters, and then my first question is, are you running it on an 80 volt board? And he starts thinking, maybe I was. Well, that's why you're losing that igniter, right? You probably didn't. If you wanted to use it to get by overnight, you'd probably be okay, but make sure you go back and change it out, because it's not going to last at 120 volts, or I'm sorry, at 80 volts very long. Okay. Remember, this guy is a 120 volt igniter. So White Rogers makes 5 different OEM igniters for different OEMs. So if you've got that American Standard, that Train, or that Amana, or that Lennox, Thermopride, whatever OEM furnace you have, we make a different igniter for it, but it's an OEM specific igniter. But it's a nitride igniter, so it's, they're super tough, non-conductive, so we don't recommend.
I don't know what that
holding
means,
them out.
sir, non-conductive.
It's a great question. I'll explain it. I guess if I put it in a cup of coffee, right, it's not going to conduct any electricity. If I put your carbide igniter in a cup of coffee, right, it's going to try to conduct out. So it's insulated. What I'm saying is that igniter is insulated. The actual igniter is built inside. I might have a slide that shows you where you can actually see the element inside the igniter, which is encapsulated, so you can't touch that. Should be a good song. Can't touch that igniter.
I think that was probably a song out like that.
Probably is. Somebody I've already thought of it. If I've thought of it by now. Sorry, yeah. So, yep, there's the 50M56U replaces 300 different applications out in the field, so a great kit to have. If you don't have it in your truck yet, put it on your truck, please. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you get out to a job and you're able to accomplish the job right away without running into any headaches or hassles.
What's an average cost on that?
Jackson actually sells them, I think.
Yes, we do. It is 107.
I would say 110. So about 110, $107 from Jackson. You throw in my name at $106.99.
Unless you buy it today.
Buy it today.
102.
Oh, 102.
We do have a 10% off
Use the White
promo code
Rogers.
for you guys to use, and we'll send that out online as well.
That's excellent. Good. I knew this speech would pay off. All right, so integrated controls for Goodman. Once again, we make a variety of different integrated controls for Goodman. So I snuck out 2 reference sheets. And the reason I'm going to talk about these is because they're not in your visor card. So the 2 reference sheets, one is for Goodman. That makes it easier to see or not. One is for Goodman, one is for Lennox. Okay. So since we're talking about Goodman on the top side here, we'll talk about it first. You'll notice we have 6 different boards, 6 different modules for the Goodman equipment. Those 6 boards work in a variety of different applications for Goodman. We have 4 boards that work in a variety of different applications for Lennox. The nice part about this piece of literature that I really, really love is it gives you different applications and different features on the boards that you can see, and whether it's 80 volt or 120 volt, whether their harnesses are included, whether igniters included, what it fixes, how it mounts, lots of great stuff. And if you flip to the back is really the bonus, because the back lists all the OEMs that we replace, and then next to it, it gives you all 6 of those modules and the modules that it will replace. So the 50M56U, as you can see, replaces, almost 95% of the Goodman modules out in the field. So once again, if you're working on a lot of Goodman, that 50M56U comes in really handy. Now, if you said, "Hey Joe, I just work on this PCB the PCB BF 1325, right? Well, that's one of the smaller modules. It's a less expensive module, right? But it's very specific, and it's only going to replace maybe 6 different modules out in the field. So if that's the only furnace that you typically work on, Nate, there's no sense of stocking the 1556U. It's probably not going to happen, right? I'm guessing you're out in the field, you're going to be working on more than just one type of furnace. So just depends on what you're doing. Maybe you've just put in Goodman your whole life, and so you want that Goodman tar. So lots of different Goodman modules, and they have a variety of different uses and also a variety of different OEM replacements. So this is a great piece. I don't have anything like this yet that goes on the visor card, because the visor card's older than the piece of literature, so try to keep them together. Once again, I'll show you the app here in a minute, and that app will replace both of those pieces. All right, spending too much time. So more options for the Goodman. This is just basically the back, the underside of the sheet. Once again, you can see that we have direct replacements as well as the universal replacement. And one replaces 13 items, one replaces 300. So it just depends on what you're after. The Lennox piece. So similar is the Goodman piece. Once again, we have 4 different boards for Lennox. The universal board, the rescue kit, 50M26U. Once again, flip it over to the back, you'll see it replaces 90% of all the boards out in the field. Anybody work on Sherlight furnaces? Sherlights, A3 move boards? He knows what it is, Brian. So if you get to a spot where you need an A3 move board, I didn't bring in the kit, but that 21D83M 843, that's our universal Lennox kit, right? And it works on the 83 move furnace. So you can get your Lennox board here, Jackson. It's a little more expensive.
What was that kit number again?
21D 83M 843. Everybody's like, I gotta focus. Sorry.
Perfect.
So yeah, so that's once again another universal. And if you're working on that Sherlight, I'm sure you've been running to Lennox to get that board. We do make that board.
Does it work on the Pulse?
No. Do you have a specific OEM model number? Ask him if he has a specific OEM model number. The Pulse takes a special board, and there is one manufacturer I think that makes, because that board's been really hard to find out in the street. We do not have a replacement for the Pulse. I know we don't. We have talked about that in the past. Sorry. I know people that have those things. The Pulse module's like a piece of gold. Right? If you got that.
Because Lennox wants them to go.
Okay. Do you have one?
Lennox Pulse?
The board?
No, sir.
Yeah, I know contractors actually rent that board out to customers to keep their furnace running so they can replace the furnace. Because they keep that thing on the lockies. It's like a safe.
Jeez.
So I think there's somebody that makes one now. I can't remember the name of it. Johnson or somebody makes one. All right, so once again, 3 universal replacements, the 50M26U, the 21D83. We also recommend the 50A66. I don't talk about it as much. It's basically a universal replacement board that comes in the Lennox kit. So it would be the actual board instead of buying a kit. I think Lennox sells 3-to-1 the kit rather than just the board, because the kit has the harnesses, the back plate, the fuse. All right, so that's the end of that module. Before we start talking about the Sure Switch, let's cover the visor card briefly. Usually start with it first. Today I tried something different. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong. So with White Rogers, we make a catalog. We have a catalog. I guess we make a catalog. We put out a catalog about every 5 years. And for OEMs, for manufacturers, it gets tough to put out catalogs. But visor cards are handy and easy for us. So we put out usually one of these guys, maybe almost twice a year. We'll come out with a new visor card. So it's nice to have a visor card. This visor card has thermostats on the front. We feature, with the features and options on the thermostat. So if you're ever looking for a thermostat and you say, hey, I need something with lockout, something that does dual fuel, something that has, keypad range. I need something with 7 programs or 5 or non-programmable. This is a nice cheat sheet to have. That's what I call it, my cheat sheet. Typically, guys will call me up, and I'm always looking through this thing, right? Nobody knows my secret. I have the visor card. So on the back of the visor card, we have gas valve information, module information, and we have igniter information. Okay. So if you're in need of some quick reference, you'll find it here. Now remember that Lennox and Goodman piece I just showed you. It's not on here, so you got to kind of combine these two pieces together until we come out with a new visor card. All right. Or take notes when we do the apps. You got a smartphone, you'll love it. So, like I said, there's 8 different boards up here, and they cross 2,000 boards in the field, which is great to have. Okay? You don't need to stock everything. Okay. That's the visor. All right, so let's talk about the Sure Switch Universal Relay. Is anybody familiar with the Sure Switch Universal Relay? Yes. Nice.
Never even heard of the Sure Switch.
Never?
Nope.
Yes.
No,
Never heard of the Sure Switch?
I don't think so.
All right. So the Sure Switch is a universal. I call it. It's a universal contactor relay. You have heard of it.
Yes. Sorry, I was
See,
you're on
I
igniters.
did get you a knife.
My guy. Thank you.
Did I get you a knife yet?
No.
You haven't figured it out yet. I'll get you one. All right. So universal contactor. So what is the Sure Switch? We talked to Copeland, and Copeland is a sister division of Emerson. So if you ever get a chance to go to Copeland, it's a great tour. I've been through it a few times. It's fantastic to see the compressors they build, the way they build them, the lines that they set up, the people that work there. It's a very impressive facility. So we started asking Copeland questions. Hey, what do you think, contactor-wise? What's the industry go through? 2 to 3 million contactors a year get changed out. It's a lot of contactors, right? So we started thinking about it. Well, why would contactors get? Why would they go bad? What happens to contactors? Who hasn't got a knife yet? You got a knife yet? Why do contactors go bad? If you open up a contactor, what's wrong with that contactor?
Bit it.
Bit it? It's easy to get a knife around here. Right. What else? What else,
They
Nate?
weld themselves together.
They do well? Yep.
24-volt coils go bad.
Yep. What else? When you find a contactor, you look inside it, what's wrong with it?
Usually improper voltage, it's burn up.
Burn up? You ever see a bug inside of it?
Bug,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Bug? What kind of bug?
Earwigs.
Ladybugs.
Ladybugs, earwigs, spiders, ants, anything creepy crawly, right? I've had guys tell me possum tails, squirrel tails. I've heard lots of great snakes.
And mice died.
Mice died, yeah. I've heard lots of great stories.
Snake.
We should probably come up with a contest. Give us your best Sure Switch. So contactors fail for a variety of reasons, right? They weld, they pit, they get bugs inside of them. Fire ants in the south, fire ants are a huge problem. But up here, it's earwigs for some reason, and ladybugs. And I don't know why, but man, earwigs just love to get zapped between set of points. So I broke one apart so you guys can see actually inside the Sure Switch and see what we do to keep those things from failing. So if you think about a set of points, I brought a contactor with me. So this one's burn up. So think about a set of points, right? So what happens? What causes the points to burn up?
Arcing.
Why do they arc? Right? Because they're coming together, you get 240 volts on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then they arc, and you got basically like a little lightning bolt between the two contacts, and you're taking the metal off of one side, right, and depositing it on the other side. And eventually they start chattering. That's great for a compressor, right? Isn't that what Copeland wants? Okay, no. Do you ever wonder why Copeland wants you to change their contactor out if you change a compressor? Because they're worried it was the contactor causing the compressor to go bad. So contactors can take out compressors. They can also take out motors. So, variable speed motors are very susceptible. You start changing a contactor with a lot of pitting and welding, right? What happens to your voltage? It goes down. What happens to your amperage? It goes up. And what happens when you have high amps? Is that good for compressors and variable speed motors? If you like to change them, it is,
Yeah.
I guess. But not necessarily if you want to keep your variable speed motor and your compressor running. So amperage can be an issue. So all those things we looked at and said, okay, well, how can we build a better mousetrap? But not literally getting mouse in it. So a better trap, a better contact. All right, so here's what we did. So we talked about how it leads to arcing, and then we talked about what we could do to make it so it doesn't arc. The first thing that we did, and you'll see it when I pass this thing around, is we totally encapsulated the points. So now my points are inside here. You can't get any bugs in them. No dust, no moisture. They're totally encapsulated. So we got rid of the bug issue, right? That's probably half the hurdle. The second thing we did to get rid of the arcing is, and you see at the bottom here, anybody know how many hertz we have here in the States? 60 hertz. So 60 times a second we go up and down on the hertz scale, right? You start it on the sideline. We're starting at 0. We call it the 0 crossover. No voltage. We go up to 240 volts, down to 0, down to negative 240 volts, back to 0, 240 volts, 0, 60 times a second. Sounds really fast, but microprocessors are pretty quick too. They don't really think that's fast. So what's the microprocessor say? It says, we put a special optical sensor on the board. And that optical sensor says, hey, I can see light, right? So I can see light as that sine wave goes up and down on the sine wave scale, right? And we go up to the 240 volts and back down to negative 240. I'm going to see light. And then I'm going to go across the 0 cross where I don't have any light, down to negative 240, got lots of light down there, and back up. So can you guess when I bring on my contacts?
At the 0.
The 0 cross only. And so what does that do? If I have 0 cross and no voltage, when I bring my contacts together,
No arcing.
I got no more arcing. So you think about a better way to build a contactor. That's the way to do it. So we typically, after 1 million cycles, have a set of contacts that look like they're brand new, which is pretty cool. So no debris. They must have just added that picture too. I like to break it apart. So this one's all torn apart, so you guys can actually see it, feel it, touch it. So I'll pass this bad boy around. You notice it's got heavy-duty lugs, extra terminals for crankcase heaters, hard start kit, capacitors.
Sure. What's the cost on that? Just rough.
Wait a second, I got it. I can't see.
I love the theory.
49p,
Yes.
it's $49.
Okay, so let me talk to you about a few more things. So first thing we added, we thought was kind of crazy, is you putting your finger, right, on that contactor. 240 volts and you're sticking your finger in there. I mean, probably not a great idea. I mean, maybe use a rubber handled screwdriver. Some guys get showed me screwdrivers that got shorter and shorter over the years because they're slipped and turn up the screwdrivers. So I got it, I get it. So we said, you know what, maybe we could come up with a better mousetrap too. So we put a test button at the top. So now you push the test button and you get 5 seconds of runtime on your compressor side and on your motor side. So that's a lot better than putting your finger inside of the contactor, I think. The other thing we put on the top, you'll see there's 2 dip switches, and you can turn those on and off. The first dip switch is a 3-minute time delay. So if you think about it, like here I'm pointing at one of the Jackson Systems thermostats, right? Jackson System thermostat?
Correct.
5-minute time delay probably in that bad boy, right?
Correct.
Compressor,
5-minute time delay.
compressor protection, it's great, it's what you need, right? Most quality thermostats have 5-minute protection, time delay. What if I go out to your system? Is it Jared? Jared, your system's running. You got a heat pump, you got an air conditioner, what do you got?
Heat pump.
Heat pump. So Jared's heat pump's running, and I got his disconnect, right? Off, back on. What happens to that compressor, Jared? Did that thermostat help me? No. It's trying to cycle that compressor. Here's steam coming out of it. It's trying real hard, right? Well, guess what we did with the Sure Switch? We gave you protection on the 24-volt side. We also gave you protection on the 240-volt side. So we're protecting you on both sides. So it's an extra piece of insurance.
Is that adjustable?
You can turn it on or off. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 3-minute timer. 3-minute protection.
But I mean, is it adjustable to a 30-second, 60-second, 90-second? Do you know?
Just on or off.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
On or off. I mean, I don't know why you don't on or off, but because it'll fall inside your 5 minutes on the normal 24-volt side.
Yes.
But it's going to protect that 240-volt side as well.
Okay.
One of the best features on this product is next, and that's a brownout feature. Sorry, I skip around. Yeah, it's basically a single pole and a half application. I don't know many guys will use 2-pole contactors anymore. Really, the OEMs haven't put out 2-pole systems in a long time. So primarily, it'll cover everything built in the last 15 years. It's a 40 amp, so 40 amp pole and a half contactor. It mounts just about any application. It'll go frontwards, backwards, sideways. I'll pass one around. You can see the bottom legs to it. So if you basically mount the bottom first, okay? And you got 4 screws to mount in if you need them. And it can mount any direction you want. And then you'll see it's got a common run, an L1, L2, just like you would on a normal contactor. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's about the same size as a normal contactor. We've had them out in the field for about a year and a half, and haven't had anybody bring one back so it didn't fit. So that's good news. I'm sure somebody will now. One of the best features, I haven't got that to it yet, is the brownout protection. So brownout protection is a cool feature, and I was down in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was showing off the contactor, and it was one of the guys from Duke Energy. I shouldn't say Duke Energy, now I'll get back on it. But it was. So it's the truth, so I can tell it. So the guy from Duke Energy was looking at it. I was telling him all about it, and I said, hey, it's got brownout protection. I said, well, do you like the brownout protection? He goes, yeah. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm taking pictures. I said, what are you taking pictures of my contactor for? He goes, I'm going to send it to my boss. He said, we need those. I said, well, why? He said, well, we just lost 2 compressors. We had some intermittent power issues, right? So I should have taken pictures of him taking pictures of my contactor, right? So the brownout protection says if I fall below 180 volts, so think about your brownout issues when you have typically summertime, right? When's the highest demand? Peak demand, summertime. Everybody's out there, except Jared, he's got his heat pump on, right? We've got heat pumps and air conditioners on. And so that demand, right, causes some brownouts. Some times where the power, especially if you get into somebody's farmhouse, you ever get into somebody's farmhouse and they've got that power, he's way, way, way out in the middle of farmland, right? And that poor guy's lights are flickering all the time. So as the power fluctuates, and remember, your voltage goes down, what happens to your amperage? Amperage goes back up. So that's what happens. You lose compressors, and you lose fan motors. So this little guy says, hey, if I get below 180 volts, I'm shutting off. And I wait till I get above 190 for 4 seconds, right? And then I'm going to randomly bring on your equipment. So if I've got John's and Tony's and Jared's systems side by side by side, they'll all come on at different times, which is really cool. So a great piece of insurance, some extra protection for your equipment. We've had them on the OEM side. They've been out on the OEM side since 2006 with several different manufacturers. So, if you opened up anybody know what a unitary control is? It's a board with that blue box mounted on the board. So the sure switch is mounted into an OEM board. I don't have an OEM board to show you. I should have brought one up. But the actual sure switch is mounted on the OEM board. So it's typically on high-end green, rude. I think there's some Armstrong out there as well. You might have saw one.
Just single phase, not the 3-phase.
I wish man, if I had a quarter for every time I heard that question, I'd be a millionaire. Yeah, we're working on stuff, so hopefully soon. Yeah, so for you commercial guys, you work on a lot of commercial equipment. Yeah, something with phase protection.
What's the count?
I can dream up some stuff.
Yeah. What's the count?
Great question. I forgot to.
What was the question?
The count. There's another feature on the sure switch that's a count feature, a count button. So if you push the count button is going to flash a code. There's a 3-colored LED status, fault code, right, on the sure switch. And a slow green is standby, solid green is normal, fast green is in delay. There's a red and green alternate low line voltage, and then green, yellow, and red, and that's the test button. Okay. So if you push the count button, it'll actually flash a code red, yellow, or green and tell you how many times it's cycled. So it's, I think red is. It's not going to tell me. It's going to make me remember.
So it says on this contactor.
It does. I think red is 1,000. Green is 500 and yellow is 100. I could be wrong. Maybe it's 10,000, 1,000, 100. I mean, sorry. Usually it's on my other slide, but it basically gives you a count. So the only thing I can think of, maybe the engineers are thinking is, maybe Mrs. McGillicuddy calls up and says, "Hey Tony, you put that system on my house 2 years ago, but it's always cycling on off, on off, on off, on off. Seems like it cycles too much. Well, I can push the test button. I can check how many times the system's cycled, hey, it's cycled 1,480 times, right? Well, now let's see, 1,500 times. That seems a little high for a year and a half of runtime, right? So I'm going to go from a fast anticipation to a slow anticipation on your thermostat, and that'll give me less cycling but longer run times. And so she's like, "Oh, that's great." So, and I guess I could think of it. Maybe there's maybe an instance where you would like to have something, with a count button flashing a code, let you know. And if you mark it down every year, I went out and checked. You could keep track of how many times it's cycled per year. So, I don't know. You can think of any other applications? Maybe it might be handy. I'm all ears. I'll remember them. Somebody said it'd be a great idea. Just to let you know, there are several YouTube videos online. If you get to YouTube, there's a couple guys. Dizzy Dallas does a couple great videos. I'll give Dizzy Dallas a plug. He talks a lot about the Sure Switch, more in depth like a contractor would talk, because he's a contractor. So he's going to bring up points that I don't normally bring up, maybe on installation, how he likes it, and the things that it does for him. We go into setback mode.
Yep.
That's good. That means it means the thermostat's working. Absolutely. Great. So that's a little about the Sure Switch. I think if you try one, and I always explain it this way, you go out to the homeowner's house, Mrs. McGillicuddy, hey, you know what, today was an earwig. It was in your contactor. I got that here it is. Right? And I went ahead and I'd be happy to replace that contactor for you. It's whatever your charge is for a contactor, John. What do you charge?
$140.
$150, so $140 for a contactor replacement, right? Okay. So I'm $100 an hour and it's $40 for the contactor or whatever, right? Just for a small extra fee, while I'm out there, I'll put on something and you'll never have, because that earwig could come back again tomorrow, and then my service charge, my service charge. Your husband probably, oh yeah, that's right, I see it happen. Hairballs are everywhere, right? So the earwig could come back tomorrow in that contactor. Okay. So this way, Mrs. McGillicuddy, I'll protect you from having that same situation, and because I don't want to come back and keep charging you for something that really we can alleviate with just a difference. So this is really the difference.
What's the warranty on that, sir?
5 years. Great
Okay.
question. Thank you. I should give you another screwdriver to remind me.
No, you're good. Thank you.
A normal contactor. What's the you probably get warranties when you walk out the door. The contactor is over.
Yeah.
So yeah, 5 years is great warranty for that product. We think we really like it. Be great for a compressor and a motor as well. We talked about the hot rod earlier in brief, but we really didn't go into any depth on the hot rod. We have renamed the hot rod from the 21D64-2, and nobody can remember 21D64-2, so they're part numbers. So our competition has kind of a part number that everybody remembers, right, on their igniter. So we thought the hot rod would be easier for people to remember. We've come up with a 5-pack, which is a little less expensive. Jackson is now stocking the hot rod, and it's around $100 probably.
$97.
$97. So that's It's a 5-pack for $97. So it's under $20 for an igniter. So it used to be that there was a big disparity between the carbide igniter and the nitride igniter. So if you had a silicon carbide igniter versus a nitride, the nitride was much more expensive. But that difference is pretty close now. When you're under $20, your average carbide's probably 15 to 17, 18 bucks, might be more. There are some carbides that are more expensive than nitride igniters. Yes, sir. Yes, right now. So yeah, he asked about the 3-phase earlier, which was a great question. And yeah, we're working on a couple of. This was the first effort into an aftermarket contactor. We've done all right with the contactor. We'd like to do better. It's just about getting people to see it and understand what it is. Because how am I going to sell that, right? Because I'm sure that's what you guys are asking yourself. Great, looks like a great contactor. Love to have one in my house. But how is Mrs. McGillicuddy going to say, hey, I need that contactor? I don't want to have another earwig or spider, an ant, ladybug, whatever the case is, right? And I've got a brand new $6,000, trained American Standard, whatever the piece of equipment is, Goodman, out there. It's a heat pump. That heat pump is cheap to replace, right? Last thing we do is lose that compressor. Probably got a variable speed motor in that house. So those are great pieces of insurance. So, all right. So the hot rod universal nitride igniter. We've had nitride. We talked a little bit about it earlier, where we brought it over from Europe over to the States, and So we've basically just gone through and renamed it. But we tried to make some things to make it even better. So we wanted it to be easy to install. We put in a universal bracket. So you'll find there's 2 brackets inside. One is universal, one's for seal combustion, but basically one bracket for universal adaptation. So it's simple. It adapts to 150 different OEM igniters. That is over and above what my competition offers for their competitive offering, right? It has nitride design, of course, 120 volts, remember that. Very robust, you can touch this one, you can't hurt it. I hear a lot of contractors saying, hey, don't touch your igniter, right? Don't look at it wrong. Be careful when you open up the box. So, and all those, and the igniters have gotten better. Norton builds all the carbide igniters. So if you have a carbide igniter, and you look at that carbide igniter, right? Here's mine. It says White Riders on one side. What does it say on the other side? Norton. So Norton makes all the carbide igniters, and White Riders and Robert Shaw sell both those igniters. They have a different partner for those, but those are carbide igniters. So the nitride igniter is a little different. All right. Easy to service. We make the 5-pack. Jackson stocks that. And then, you try to have the right function at the right time. Peace of mind. We put a 5-year warranty on the nitride igniter. That's longer than our competition. I believe theirs is 3 years. We used to have 3 years. We went to 5. So long life igniter. Should make it an easier upsell for Mr. and Mrs. Smith who found they had a bad igniter at their house. Hey, let me give you an igniter that's going to last you a long time. I replaced a carbide igniter for a gentleman today who had a carbide igniter, came into a wholesale house, right, was looking for the part number. We crossed it over. And they didn't have the right carbide igniter, but they had the 21D64 on their shelf today. He took it just for his own house. He was selling his house. He goes, well, I don't want to spend any more money. And he saw the price. He was like, well, that's not bad. I can live with that. So they're under 20 bucks. So he was happy. All right, so if you looked at the difference, and the reason I told you we did about 100, we do 150 or over crosses, and our competition's around 120, is surface area. So bigger is better. We get a bigger igniter in the flame. That larger igniter in the flame gives you more opportunities for OEM crossover. So, and that's the biggest difference in the 2 nitride igniters. They have 6 brackets in their nitride igniter. I think I have 1. So we try to keep it simple. The reason they have 6 is because they have to get their igniter out further in the flame. Okay. So you may find that if you have the other guys, it's not going to work in every application. Here's a look at the universal igniter and the universal bracket. We've referenced different base types. So if you have a different base type, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you open up the universal igniter, there's a booklet inside there, and it says if you have this bracket type, take our bracket in here, snap off tab 1, or snap off tab 2, or snap off tab 3, and you're good to go. I don't even think you're going to read the booklet. I think you're going to look at it and say, I need to snap that one off and put it in. So you might look at the booklet the first time. If you're counting sheep at night, maybe you want to go to sleep at night. But be aware the booklet's inside there to make it easy. There's basically an A, B, and C tab, and that just basically determines on where to break the mounting bracket and use it inside the furnace. Okay. All right. So here's a little ditty. I mean, you guys have all seen that carbide igniter that's busted on the bottom, right? 5-year warranty. Carbides break kind of easily. We talked about ohming out a carbide igniter earlier. I'm not sure if we talked about that online. You can't ohm a carbide igniter. Carbide igniters will work if they're broke. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a carbide igniter. It's got a little crack in it. It'll still glow, right? And it may work for another year. It may work for another week. Do a spot inspection. Do a spot inspection on an igniter. Okay. So watch it fire. Look inside. See if you can see a crack on it. You ohm it if you have to. It may ohm good, even with a crack in it, depending on how bad that crack is. Okay. But there's usually a 30 to 200 ohm, maybe 40 to 300 ohm rating. So the rating's pretty wide, pretty general.
The whitish gray mark we find a lot on our inspection. Those are cracks or potentials.
potentials probably. Potentials. I mean, if you have a 21D, you've got a quick fix. Like I say, you can roll the dice with the homeowner and it may last you another 5 years, but it may not. There's probably no indication that that's going to cause it to break right away, but it's probably not a good sign either. So it works on most applications. On the hot rod box, we give you those applications. We are upgrading our box. You'll see a new package from us with even more reference and more cross-reference. So, yep, great. So here's an example of that crack I was just showing you. So that igniter is actually working. Did light a furnace, right? But you can see the break in it. It's pretty obvious. So check it. Look for that potential crack. You know, igniters can still get hot. And there's the resistance. Rule of thumb, 40 to 70 ohms, but you can look at them, they're 30 to 300 from what I've seen. 40 to 70 is your good rule. Get outside of that, you might scratch your head. Versus the shear switch time delay. All right, gas valve. So we get to my favorite section here, and the home stretch. So you should have had a little packet. This is something new from White Rogers. I really like this. This is a gas valve booklet. The gas valve booklet. On the front, you'll see there are 3 different types of gas valves. The C valve, which I'm sure most of you have seen in the past, right? I mean, how many times have you put a standing pilot C valve in the field? White Rogers has historically had about 65% of the OEM business. So we've got lots and lots of gas valves out in the field. 16, 17, 18 million gas valves out in the field for White Rogers. That's lots. So if you see a C valve, you also see an H valve and a J valve. So once again, the C valve was basically a valve that was a 280,000 BTU valve, pretty high capacity valve. If you flip to page 5 shows you all 3 valves. So all 3 of those valves on page 5, I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not. And those valves, we'll talk about the differences in the applications. So you'll see the C valve does direct spark, hot surface ignition, proven pilot, and standing pilot. There's all 4 different applications. You'll see the H valve doesn't do standing pilot work. Okay, so the C valve's been around since 1974, right? A long time. Dinosaurs roamed the earth. The H valve came after the C valve, and they weren't making standing pilot furnaces anymore for the H valve. So they went to a different valve, had a little more capacity, about 320,000 BTUs, but didn't handle standing pilot. But you'll notice at the bottom, the characteristics, it does 2-stage work, where the C valve did not. So if you have a 2-stage furnace, right, and it's not standing pilot, it's a direct spark or hot surface ignition or proven pilot, you might need an H valve. Maybe some great examples on H valve work would be like unit heaters, large boilers, right, where you need a super high capacity valve. You know, but think about this: the average furnace you guys install now, you're not installing them. When's the last time you installed a 175,000 BTU furnace in somebody's house? We don't have it anymore, right? So the J valve came along. So the J valve, the G and the J valve, these 2 guys here, they're half by half inlet outlet openings, right? They're smaller capacity valves. Okay, they don't have all the capacity of an H or C valve, but they won't work on standing pilot. They won't work on a proven pilot either. Okay, but they do 2-stage work, fast and slow opening, right? In the field, we had 440 different G valves, right? I've got 6 J valves that replace all 440 different valves. So once again, a universal piece and part. I think.
Are you saying G valve, sir?
G, yep. G is in Goodman. Did I pass out a G? Did I pass out a G on your table? Yeah. So you should see like, or J, I'm sorry, 36J. So the G valve is no longer really out there in the field for universal application. Still sold, but not that much.
It's the J valve you were.
J valve is the J valve. I'm sorry, J valve is the one I was referring to.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Sorry. Yep. Thank you. If you flip to the back, you'll see there are 6 different valves located on the bottom of that sheet. Those 6 valves replace 440 different valves out in the field, so including almost all of the G valves. And I think with 4 of those valves, you can replace probably 90-some% of all the G valves out in the field and J valves out in the field. So you don't, there's probably 2%, maybe a special carrier, special train valve, very, very small amount of those valves sold. So yeah, if you're looking with 4 different J valves, you've got most things covered. Okay, so once again, the J valve is a half by half, and that's the reason for it's 140,000 BTUs. If you flip over to the next page, page 6 and 7, you'll see nomenclature. Once again, if you're having trouble sleeping at night, counting sheet, this is a better page. No more Ambien or whatever the sleep medicine is. So you can say like a 36CO3, which would be one of our standing pilot valves. Dash 4 would be 3/4 by 3/4. Dash 3 would be 3/4 by half. Dash 2 would be half by half. So there's some real meaning in the nomenclature if you're interested in the nomenclature on the valve. Okay. So yeah, if you got a 3/4 by 3/4 valve and it's a 280,000 BTU system and it says dash 2, it ain't gonna make it. It's a half by half, and it's probably limited to under 100 and some thousand BTUs. Okay. If you flip over to page 8 and 9, you'll see some different system application reference. We go into some detail on hot surface ignition and some wiring. We go into some detail on direct spark ignition, some wiring as well. Standing pilot, proven pilot, and cycle pilot. So some of those you may or may not see very often, but as quick reference, that's pretty much what we give you. We won't give you everything you need to know, but maybe just quick reference. And then on page 11, 12, and 13, we give you a cut sheet, and that's the same page as that 36J that you've got, only for the C, the H, and the J. This one I like because I can't see this one. And I think the J is probably the one you're going to see the most anymore. You'll still see some C's and H's. And the J valve is, it's less expensive than an H and C valve by a long shot. So no sense in buying something you don't need. Check out the J valve. Okay, on page 14, there's product accessories. So if you need a spring to go from propane to natural propane, and the C valve, the H valve, the J valve, and you wanted the part number, let me give you those part numbers in case you wanted the part number, let me give you those part numbers in case you're changing the valve over. And then everybody's favorite part, the cross-reference, right? So the cross-reference starts on page 15. I'll just make a note. Go to page 22. If you go to page 22, in the middle of that page, you'll start to see those 36G valves, okay? And you'll notice they all cross over to 36J valves. And there's 100 of them there. Over and over and over and over. Did you find it? Page 22? So, it's hard to see. 36, there's 36G. Yeah, crossed over to J.
All the way down.
Okay. So, good cross-reference. Great booklet to have. All right, I'll buzz through some gas valve information, then we're going to talk about apps. I'll open my iPad will work. So if you want to know when to replace a valve, I guess there are specific instances when you'll see a valve replacement necessary. Manifold regulation should be reached in 20 seconds. Maintain plus or minus 10% of the set pressure. So you got your manometer out, and you're looking at your water column, and you're trying to figure out what your pressures are. If you see a pressure remaining above the set point or erratic fluctuations in outlet pressure, obviously it's time to replace the valve. If the regulation cannot be adjusted, replace the valve if the valve is not open, if the gas valve is subject to water flooding. So water and gas valves do not mix. We don't sell replacement parts for gas valves for a reason. We just don't want the headaches and the insurance battles and everything else. So not over a gas valve. Too many things and pieces and parts inside that valve that you're going to be saying, "Whoa, we'd rather not take that risk." So we talked about the ignition sources in the book. Standing pilot, proven pilot, direct burner ignition, direct spark, or hot surface ignition. I don't think there'll be any questions with you guys. If we do this again, I'll go into more depth on all those applications.
Okay.
Once again, what's the furnace input? Look at the rating. There's fast, there's slow, there's two-stage. fast and slow opening valves, and I'll show you those as well. White Rogers gas valves come with reducing bushings. So if you open up a gas valve box, I didn't bring the right box. If you open up a gas valve box, you'll find a reducing bushing from 3/4 to half. And there's usually a spring, natural LP, inside, but they'll get lost, always. Maybe you'll have one in your truck, I don't know, some guys do.
Quite punchy.
There's the 4 different types of applications we were talking about earlier. I've got a gas valve tray. You know, you can check combustion. It's really hands-on. I mean, most guys they're looking at hot service now. And I don't know how many applications you get for standing pilot anymore, but I typically see 5 to 10%, maybe a little less, and that should be going on like that. Unless you go to my mom and dad's house and you'll find one. Proven pilots, there might be a few of those out there with spark, electrode, and a flame sensor, and of course direct spark. And you'll notice standing pilot's got to be a C valve, proven pilot's going to be an H valve, direct spark's going to be an H or a J valve, and hot surface ignition will be H or J valve. Could be a G valve as well, so it could be, I think that's wrong with that. It could be that G valve too. Okay. There's 2 different definitions of pressure drop on the H valve and the J valve. Once again, the different, whether you're doing natural gas or LP, the different pipe size. If you're doing 3/4 by 3/4, that 36H will go up to 300,000 BTUs. If you're doing half by half, you're only 170 on the natural gas side. 140 on the 36J. Once again, what is a 1-inch pressure drop? Excuse me. Gas valve has a pressure drop just like you'd see in ductwork, static pressure. 1-inch pressure differential is the maximum amount of gas BTUs that can pass through the gas valve inlet outside under certain conditions and pressures. So just remember, if you've got a 3/4 by 3/4 valve, it's a higher capacity valve. We make fast, slow, 2-stage, and you'll see the step openings on the 2-stage as well, from first to second. Anybody working on? We don't have any variable speed. Anybody working on variable speed yet?
Mm-hmm. Modulating.
Yeah, I don't have any modulating stuff yet, but maybe I need to. What percentage of the business is that for you guys?
It's 10, 20%, somewhere in that range. The York fully modulating furnace.
You talking about modulated gas valves?
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll talk to the guys at Corp and have them add some modulating stuff to future. If you guys are starting to do some of that work, it'd be good to have it in here just as reference. We don't talk about it much, but we should. Typically, OEM stuff comes out in 5 years down the line. The aftermarket guy like me is talking about it, right? It's getting to that point. We're almost into it, probably 5 years or so. Maybe not quite, but close. That's a good thought. I gotta remember that. Take it out. Ignition source. We've talked about most of this stuff already, as well as stages. 98% of the furnaces manufactured the last 10 years can be repaired using a J valve. 98%. That's pretty good. We do not replace smart valves. I don't have replacement for those. 1, 2, or 3, or 4, whatever smart valve version they're on. So you have to go back to the competition for that.
There's nothing smart about those valves.
How many guys have a smartphone? Smartphone? Got one? Dude? Smartphone back there? He's got a smartphone. He's on it right now. So, smartphone. Where are you going to go with him? Without him, right? Nate's got 3 smartphones back there. I'm not kidding you, girl. He's got 3 iPhones. He's running them all at the same time. I think he's got stocks. He's got girlfriend, boyfriend. Maybe he's married. I don't know. So he's got lots of stuff going on. But we got some stuff to put on your smartphone or on your iPad. Some things that are going to make everything I just showed you, as far as the visor cards, obsolete. Okay. So Emerson has a bunch of different apps. They're all free, right? So White Rogers has an app. We have that PT chart app that we talked about. You guys are after. You probably have 3 of them on your phone right now. Copeland has a cross-reference. I'm going to show you that one too. It's really cool. They've really done some updating to their app. It's really nice. So if you get into everybody working on scrolls, right? Everybody wants to know some more information about your scroll. This is a great app to have. The HVAC check-in charge is my favorite. It's one I'm going to start with. It's not ours, but I like it because it shows you everybody else's app. The X-Check is the refrigeration, and the HVAC fault finder is great. I have U.S. Motors on there as well, because White Rogers reps the U.S. motor line as well. So that's a great app too. So I'm going to just start with the HVAC check and charge. So the HVAC check and charge, why I like it the most, it says check out other apps. So I push this button. Notice there's all the other apps. So when you ask me, Joe, where are the other apps? I could usually say go to your smartphone. If it's an Apple, go to your App Store. If it's an Android, go to your Google Play Store. Right? Type in White Rogers or Emerson, and you'll find most of those apps. Or you could type in HVAC check and charge, and then on the very front page, it'll give you all the apps. So I like that one the most. And you can get them. You can get to them from there. All right. So let's just say. Let's just say you're into that HVAC check and charge. You want to know what it does. So anybody work on 410? Want to do a superheat subcool? Okay, let's do a superheat. So indoor wet bulb. Go to my wet bulb temperature. Select 70. How about the dry bulb? Let's go to 57, 60. Vapor pressure, 140. Vapor line, 69. All right, hit calculate. Superheat is 20. Recommended superheat on that job was 35. I need to remove some charge. That was pretty quick for doing a superheat, huh? Pretty cool. So those are great apps that are free. You can check yourself, make sure you got the right superheat going on. So adjust it and recalculate. So how about a subcool? Do the same thing with subcooling. Pick my required liquid. Pick my liquid line temperature. Calculate. Oh, it's close. Subcooling 21. I'm recommended 17, so I need to try that one too. So great tools to make your life easy in the apps. So that's HVAC check and charge. There is on the HVAC check and charge proper airflow as well, so you can do airflow work if you want to do airflow work. I don't know. Does everybody, you guys do superheat subcool every job?
Oh,
All right. Yes, it's a good answer. Have you used it, even if you don't?
yeah.
Good answer. All right. I'll go PT chart because it's quick and easy. So it used to be there was what, three different refrigerants, right? What do you have? 12, 22, and 4. Go back and maybe you had 12, 22, maybe 134, right? Now you got 290, 401, 402, 404, 407, A and B, C, R, 407, 408, 409, 410, 5, 507, 600, 717, 744. There's a lot of different choices. So hopefully you can do all those with your slide calculator, or you can have this app. It'll make it a lot easier. So just do your superheat subcool this way too. So type in the numbers, right? And as you slide it, notice it changes by vapor or vacuum. So pretty slick. I like it. And there, like I said, there's probably a couple others that you like better. Maybe you're used to using it. Maybe. All right, so we'll go into Copeland before I hit my favorite. So Copeland's app has been redone. If you don't have the XREF, I recommend it. I like it. It got a scan feature, so if you hit the scan button, it'll scan, a barcode, and then that barcode will give you the information about the compressor. If you don't have this, if you don't have the barcode or don't have the ability to scan it, just type in your part number. ZR4. Anybody ever worked on a ZR4 compressor before? Copeland makes a few of them. There they are. I'm working on that guy, right? So my mechanical work is up top. I got the height, the shipping weight, the mounting, the suction size, discharge size, oil type. If I want the electrical information, even got my run capacitor on there too. How many times you want to run capacitor information on your compressor? Pretty cool. So this stuff is designed to save you money so they can get to the next job and make somebody else more money. So these are apps it's nice to call Jackson every now and then, but Jackson loves it when you call him. But if you have the information in front of you, you can save your call to these guys for the important calls. Like I need to buy 200 White Rogers thermostats. It's more important.
That's a good call. We take those calls too.
Performance. We have two different conditions for performance. We have a BTU capacity, evap temp, condenser temp, return gas, liquid line. And if you look, I'm going to show you two different conditions. So the BTU capacity is 42.2, so what's that, ton and a half? Or, sorry, 3.5 tons, right? I've been giving this presentation for a ton and a half. Or 50,000, so you're a little over 4 ton on that condition, so depending on your temperatures. Okay. And then there's cross-reference information as well. Great app. So these apps, guys, are not done. They add information to them all the time. This thing comes out every year, 6 months, right? The app's updated a lot. So I like apps. When people call me, and if I don't have the advisor card handy, I grab my phone. Today I was in wholesalers. I use my phone for that cross. It was like that. Out the door he went. If he had his smartphone, he would have the cross when he walked in. He said, I need this or that. So, all right, so White Rogers app. So here's the White Rogers app. I like this because we have a chooser on it. So we have a cross-reference. So you can say, okay, I got an S86 board. So it's my competitor's board. There's all the S86 boards they make. They make a lot of different boards. There's the one I want to replace. And it's going to say, hey, the part number is the S86 10H1038, and the suggested replacement is that 50D5843. You could have found that information in this advisor card. Okay. I bet you can't find that this information there. Did you remember that chip that we were talking about, John?
Yep.
Here's your chip. All the chips that go on the side. Now I can figure out what chip I need to set up the timing for that model. It's right there. See, guys, I lost the installation instruction you sent to me. Yeah, found that already. Go on to the next job, make more money. Okay? Get home, okay? Don't work on Saturdays and Sundays because you made too much money already. Thermostats. We have this. This is a nice feature. It's a chooser. Remember, we have the thermostats on the front. You have to pick and choose the features. So now I can say, okay, I want a 6-inch thermostat because I want a big display. But let me choose the features. So I want it to be programmable. I want it to be heat pump, keypad lockout. Go. And it says, hey, you could try the. Sorry, you can't see it there. That's the 1F98EZ, which happens to be our wireless. The 1F950680, which happens to be our commercial, or the 1F950671, which happens to be the residential model. So 3 quick minutes, that bang. I just helped you choose the thermostat. We now have that for application for our desktop. So I was going to go over that with the guys in the back.
Okay.
So we have a desktop chooser now. It's not as nice as this chooser yet. It will be. It's version 1. This is version 10.
Gotcha.
So we can do the same thing with gas valves. So you can say, hey, I got a natural gas valve. It's fast opening, 2-stage. Hit go, and it's going to recommend, hey, there's a 36H gas valve and a 36J gas valve. Remember I said 2-stage, so if it had said C gas valve, we'd have a problem, right? Because there ain't no 2-stage C gas valves. There ain't no. There are no 2-stage gas valves. Ignition modules. So we can go with the non-integrated modules. We go with the integrated modules. We go with that 50D5843, right? Once again, there's some other related products for that module. You can pull up the cell sheet. So I can see the cell sheet and the modules that have been crossed. So, as well as the installation instructions. And once again, the sure switch relay is on here as well. There are igniters. You can look at the hot rod igniter as well and the spec sheet on it. So, just FYI, here's the one that I did today, 601. The guy brought in a 601 igniter, right? 601, get the cross-reference. It crossed it over to a 767A382, which is our carbide igniter, right? But note at the bottom, that's for an Amana, you can use a 21D64-2 to upgrade the igniter. And that's what we walked out with. Simple. Easy peasy. There's a support number on here, a website number as well. I'm going to go this because this is a cool fault finder. We talked about this, Brian and Nate. You guys were talking about going out and remember going from, it was a website, I forget what it was, you guys were talking about something, it was like a video that you watched and it took you to the next step. Kind of, right? So Copeland came up with an idea. They brought people into an IT classes in Dayton, Ohio, and it was for techs. What they found out was that a large percentage of the time they'd get a compressor back and it was good. Nothing wrong with that compressor, right? But you think about this. If you go into a furnace right now, what do you got inside of a furnace? What's the difference between a furnace and an air conditioner? Right, what's my furnace got? What's that little guy do? Helps me do the diagnostic work, right? If I go out to an air conditioner heat pump, maybe the heat pump might have a little flashing light. Not many, right? So you got no help out in the air conditioning system. So the tech does the diagnostic work, and even the skilled technician who's been doing it for a long time still was bringing back a higher percentage than normal than what Copeland would like. The junior tech, right, wasn't good. He's bringing back a lot of compressors. So Copeland's saying, hey, we've got to have something to help these guys do it. So they came out with the Comfort Alert module. And that Comfort Alert module was a diagnostic tool that flashed a code. You saw it on most of your high-end systems. You don't see it on a whole lot of 13s here, but it'd be better if they had it. So here's what it is. So, welcome to the Fault Finder. Do you have a compressor protection module? Yes. And the reason I'm going to tell you yes is because I want to show you something. So there's all these compressor protection modules, right? All those Comfort Alert modules. Notice the one on the bottom here. Can you see the one on the bottom that says unitary controller? I wish I could show you this thing blown up. Can you see that little blue box? You know what that is?
Yeah.
Sure switch. That's that sure switch. Built into that unitary compressor. So if you have that heat pump, right, out in your house, like I say, it's probably 2 different manufacturers that use it, but you'll be seeing some more use that thing on their equipment. So you say, yeah, I've got a protection module. I've got this Comfort Alert module that's flashing one red light. I want to diagnose it. Give me some diagnostic work. So I hit 1, flash code indicates the following, right? So, oops, I choose one that doesn't work. Let's do 1 red, 1 yellow. Okay, flash code normally means this. Let's troubleshoot the compressor. Does the compressor start? Yes. Does it short cycle? Yes. What control is short cycling? Thermostat? Protector? Thermostat's short cycling. Do not replace the compressor. Verify the system operation. Right? The protector. Check the voltage on the protector. Got proper voltage. Check the amp draw. Normal amps. So it's in this case, replace the protector or the compressor. So it's trying to get you to look. What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Just like your video did. So that's a free tool that Copeland gave this information and put that Comfort Alert module. And now the senior techs are getting, they're not bringing back any compressors. They're getting the right answer every time. Even the junior techs are up in the 90s, which is where we're after. Okay. Any questions on, I think I've taken it right back to about 10 till 7. Any questions on anything that we covered tonight that you guys want to talk about? If you haven't downloaded the apps, download it free. Can't do anything but save you time, make you more money. You'll never have to work again. It's always a good thing. Thanks guys. Any online questions? Nope. Great.